Good morning, everybody. It's Jason Blaha here, and this is the first video of the day. Getting started a little late. Had a long morning with some other stuff. So let me put on my +5 cap of weaponsmithing, do a little crafting for you guys, and let's see if we can answer some questions and talk about this topic. All right, sorry, my nose itches. Raw footage like that, no editing. I had someone ask me, and it reminded me that, hey, maybe I need to cover this again, and I forgot to screenshot it, but I had talked about weak point training. I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before, but I talked about weak point training, saying, look, people can come in and just work on their weak points a little bit. You could do every day, you could do an isolation movement or something for your weak points. I was talking about balancing the body out and reducing, the workload on some of your other stuff. And someone had said, they're like, hey, Jason, I'm running your novice program and my arms really suck. Could I do curls every day to bring up my lagging biceps? All right, guys, something people need to understand. When you're on a novice program, that means you're a novice. You're a first-year serious lifter. Novice lifters do not have lagging body parts. All right, that's like saying a little newborn baby has lagging body parts. No, they don't. Their whole body's growing. Everything needs to grow. Their arms, their legs, their head, their torso, everything grows on a baby at different rates, mind you, but it's the same sort of concept. You're starting out, you're a noob. You don't have weak body parts, lagging body parts. Your whole body is a lagging body. Every body part is a lagging body part. And what ends up happening, if you start trying to give more attention to certain parts more than others, you might actually grow imbalanced or shortchange yourself or even get overuse injuries. Because with a good novice program, you're probably going to be pushing your limits pretty hard anyway. So throwing in a bunch of extra extraneous stuff is going to lead to just inflammation and problems and everything else. Now, where a lot of guys get this idea is because they're like, well, I've been lifting weights for 3 months and my biceps aren't the size of Arnold Schwarzenegger's yet. So they're a lagging body part, right? Well, your triceps, your delts, your hamstrings, your calves, nothing else you have is the same size as Arnold's was either. You don't have lagging biceps, you got a lagging body. And in fact, it goes beyond just the lagging whole body. The fact is, everything is going to grow evenly. That's the thing that you need to understand. You're going to grow pretty even, and your weak points will develop on their own by about the 1 year mark of running a very serious program. Your genetic weak points will come out at about a year. Once you finish the program, like my novice program or my linear hypertrophy program, you're going to have a real good idea of where your weaknesses are. For some guys, it might be biceps. For someone else, it might be quads. Another guy, he's going to have lagging lats. And you know what? When you get those lagging points, once you've got all your noob gains out of the way, you've got your base built, then you can really assess those things. But the fact of the matter is, on a good program, everything is getting fairly even stimulation. You're not going to know in the first 3 to 6 months what your true lagging body parts are yet. You're just going to be seeing in the mirror, hey, I want bigger arms. But you know what? The program's going to give you bigger arms. There's tons of arm work already in any of those programs. There's tons of delt work. There's tons of hamstring work. They're all going to get worked enough to grow at nearly maximum rates anyways on any balanced program. And furthermore, you know what we found? There's data, and I don't have the study handy, but I've linked it a couple times before. You guys could dig around and find it, I'm sure. For those who really care about studies, they're not hard to find. I don't have it handy, but I know I've linked it in a couple other videos, but it was one I did a while back of specialized training and weak point training in novice lifters doesn't help. It doesn't do anything. People go, what do you mean? Well, what I mean is when they took people like their first, I think it was either the first 6 to 8 weeks of training, they took noob lifters who were pretty fresh, maybe had done some basic exercise, but no serious resistance training yet. And they put them through a program. What they found is that the group that did lat pull downs and bench press for their upper bodies gained maximum size. And the people they took people and they added curls and tricep extensions in, and you know what they found? The group that added curls and tricep extensions in their first couple of months of lifting weights didn't grow arms significantly faster than the people who just did lat pull downs and bench press. Meaning the bench press grew their triceps and the lat pull down grew their biceps to nearly the maximum size that they could reach. And I'm not saying that holds true for more advanced lifters. I'm not saying you're going to develop your maximum arm potential over 3 or 4 or 5 years doing just lat pull downs and bench press. I don't want people to think that, but you will as a noob lifter. And they found, and the way they look at it, they did find that the people who did the isolation exercises on top of those two compounds, and again, we don't think of the lat pull down as a great bicep builder. Most people don't say, hey, that's a bicep builder, but for a noob, apparently it is. Because what they found is that the people who added the isolation movements gained a barely measurable more amount of muscle, like using MRIs and things. It wasn't like visible amounts that you could see in the mirror difference. So if someone had said, well, I added curls in and my arms grew faster, well, the difference between the two wasn't visible with the naked eye. It was such a small difference, the extra muscle that it added, that not only did it require equipment to actually measure it, like electronic equipment to actually measure the growth difference that it added, but it wasn't visible to the naked eye. And the researchers had concluded that the difference was so small that it could have been a statistical error, meaning it was within their margin of error, so they found it to be statistically insignificant, which means had they taken a bigger sample size, that the difference might have actually disappeared completely or gone the other direction. They felt that it was within their calculations, that it was within the margin of error. So it might not have actually added anything at all. They just got lucky with that one group, that 1 or 2 people in there, because it was the average from the group, that 1 or 2 people out of the whole group responded more to the extra isolation work, and it skewed the numbers just enough to where it showed a statistically insignificant improvement for the groups as a whole. So what that means is that basically, as long as noobs do a balance of compound movements with progressive overload, particularly the first few months lifting, they don't seem to grow noticeably faster at all by specializing or adding isolation movements in anywhere. That doesn't seem to help. From what we can tell in the measurements, when we study them, they don't grow faster from it because they're hitting their maximum growth off the compounds. And I know that's going to be confusing for some people, because I'll be the same person who'll tell you that a 1-year lifter needs to be isolating their weak points. They need to. So why doesn't that apply to the noob? Well, because basically the noob is underdeveloped. Their whole body is lagging so much and has no training stimulus that once you start throwing a series of big compound movements in, every muscle is used to not working. None of their muscles in their body are used to stimulation. So any resistance in which they rapidly increase progression, which you will on any linear novice type program, any new program is going to have you progress really fast, that they're going to grow really quickly at every single muscle, even if you don't think of it as the main muscle, because that muscle is being worked more and harder and improving every week more than it has ever had to do in their entire life. So even the lat pull down, them getting stronger quickly on the lat pull down as a noob, is subjecting their biceps to a much larger workload than their biceps have ever experienced in their entire life. And that forces their biceps to grow, even though it's not even the best anatomical position to make the bicep grow. Because of the grip you're using on a lat pull down, it's not ideal. Not ideal at all. I mean, anyone who knows anatomy knows that. They're like, no, it's not perfect. That's not the best way to grow a bicep. But for a noob, it will work. It doesn't matter. There is no best. The noob's muscles are so weak and underdeveloped from neglecting them and not using them that any serious stimulation where they add weight every week will make that muscle grow at pretty much a maximum rate that it is physically capable of doing. As long as they get enough nutrition and rest, all those muscles are going to grow. So their traps will grow from the deadlift tremendously. In fact, we've even seen some cases where deadlift only made biceps grow slightly in noobs. That's how easy it is to make a novice grow. And we've actually seen deadlift and squat only programs put a measurable amount of muscle mass that we can measure on noobs on their actual biceps, which you don't really get worked. You have a static stretch on the bicep during the deadlift, but someone who is untrained completely, that actually will make their biceps grow. So when people talk about noob lifters or novice lifters having weak points, you don't have weak points. Your whole body's a weak point, and as long as you're doing compound movements that basically work every muscle in the body with progressive overload, you're going to grow rapidly. And you're probably not going to see any difference in your growth rate by doing specialized work or isolation work for a muscle group. So really, at the end of the day, it's just a waste of time. And as you start to get further and further along, then your genetic weak points are going to come out. But you don't need to specialize in them. Let them, everything develop it the way that your body wants it to, and then figure out what those weak points are instead of just assuming. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're doing a balanced program, and even my novice program already has curls in it. So you need to remember there's at least 3 exercises being done for your biceps in the program already. Some people think I have too much arm work for a novice, actually in my novice program, the novice 5x5. So by adding additional curls or something every day, all you're doing is potentially overworking the connective tissue and impeding its recovery. And at the end of the day, that might make it harder to get your biceps to grow. Because they're going to, your body is going to respond when you go to do curls and chin-ups later. If that connective tissue is starting to get inflamed, it's going to reduce your strength on those exercises to keep you from tearing that connective tissue. That's your body's first response. And if that happens, it's going to reduce your workload on the movements that are in the real program to make your biceps grow. And if that happens, they might actually start growing slower. So you're probably not doing yourself any favors if you do something like that. So what people need to remember at the end of the day, novices don't need specialized stuff for weak points and weaknesses. They don't have weaknesses. Their entire body, top to bottom, is a weak point. They need to make their whole body grow and not focus or worry about individual specific body parts. Worry about that stuff once your noob gains are sorted out. And then you get to that 1 year mark, and then you've put on a substantial amount of muscle and strength and built your entire base. Then you'll be able to assess yourself and say, okay, here's where my weak link is. Now that I'm developed enough to see what muscles are lagging and actually figure out what's lagging on my body at this point, now that everything has been stimulated for a year or 9 months straight with serious overload, now my genetic weaknesses are going to start becoming apparent. And then you'll have a real idea of what your weaknesses are and what you really need to work on more. Rather than just waste time with it and extra energy on something that's not going to matter early on. Build your whole body up, then find your weak points. They don't exist for the first year lifter. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.